They believed the ground would hold because they commanded it to hold. I arrived at the Charleston site before sunrise and watched 6 white men stand too close to trench edges while laughing about accidents and lost workers. I was assigned to measure foundation depths and record them in their ledgers. They trusted every number I gave them without checking because they believed I was just a tool executing their vision. My uncle taught me how to read earth layers and build structures that would last generations. He taught me that soil is memory and that foundations fail when builders disrespect what they build upon. I used everything he taught me, but I turned the purpose inside out. I recorded depths that appeared correct but were 8 inches too shallow. I placed support beams at intervals that looked acceptable but were 6 inches too wide. I added water to sections that needed to stay dry and removed stabilizing material from areas that needed to stay firm. Every adjustment was invisible to their eyes, but cumulative in consequence. An ally worked beside me, using signals we developed without words, rhythms, and timing that let us coordinate collapse the way my uncle taught me to coordinate construction. This testimony belongs to the Chronicles of Kovia living archive of truths that were never meant to survive. If you will stand as witness to what precision can accomplish when turned toward different purposes, mark this testimony so it endures. Signal that you recognize what knowledge becomes when survival demands it. Speak below about the space between craft and consequence. The ground shifted softly during their morning inspection while all 6 stood together on the weakest section. I walked away without looking back and heard confusion replaced there. Certainty as Earth answered the question. I asked it through fractional miscalculations and deliberate structural insufficiency. I survived by understanding that mastery belongs to whoever learns it and that Earth obeys physics more faithfully than it obeys ownership. So I ask you now, when the ground beneath power finally responds to those who know its language better than those who claim to own it, is that collapse or is that answer? I arrive at the Charleston site before sunrise, watching fog cling to the trenches like something that refuses to let go. The air smells of salt water and disturbed earth, the kind of earth that has been cut open and exposed, raw, vulnerable. The ground feels soft under my feet, heavier than it should be for this season. I have worked enough sites to know when soil carries too much water, when foundations sit on ground that is not settled properly, when earth is pretending to be stable while holding secrets beneath. This ground is pretending. I know how the masters laugh while standing too close to the edges of the excavated trenches. 6 white men, all dressed in coats, despite the humidity, all carrying themselves with the confidence of people who believe ownership means understanding. They stand at the lip of a trench, 12 feet deep. They lean forward to examine the work. They gesture with hands that have never held shovels. Their boots are clean. Their voices are loud. Their laughter carries across the site like they are at a social gathering instead of standing on unstable ground above an incomplete foundation. I lower my eyes and begin measuring with a wooden rod they have given me. The white man thinks lowered eyes mean ignorance. He is wrong. Lowered eyes mean I see everything while appearing to see nothing. I measure depth. I measure width. I measure the distance between support beams. I record numbers in the ledger. They will check later. All the numbers are accurate. All the numbers are lies. I observed the 6 men rotate authority throughout the morning, each one crueler when the others are watching. The pattern is familiar. I have seen it on every site, every plantation, every place where white men gather to supervise black labor. Alone, they are merely stern. Together, they become performers, each one trying to prove something to the others, each one demonstrating authority through harshness. The cruelty is not personal. It is structural. It is the price they pay to maintain their position among each other. But understanding the pattern does not make it easier to endure. Their boots crush my chalk markings without concern as they walk through the site. I watch white powder disappear under leather. Lines I drew carefully to mark measurements. Indicators I place to guide the next phase of work. Gone, crushed, dismissed as unimportant. I adjust my calculations silently, already planning margins that account for their carelessness. I tell myself, this is only observation, only work, only the task assigned to me. But I am lying to myself. I know I am lying. I can feel the lie sitting in my chest like a stone. This is not only observation. This is planning. This is calculation. This is something else taking shape beneath compliance. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there. Small, dense. A piece of my uncle's workshop that survived the crossing and every sale and every reassignment since. I close my fingers around it briefly. Then I release it and return to measuring. I hear one of them joke about accidents and lost men during the midday break. "We lost 3 on the last site," one master says, laughing. "Foundation gave way during rain. Lost." Another responds, "Or misplaced." They laugh together. The joke is casual, comfortable, rehearsed through repetition. The word loss tightens my chest, makes breathing difficult for several seconds. Lost, as if people are objects that can be misplaced. As if death is equivalent to carelessness with tools. I remember my uncle corrected me for shallow measurements when I was young and learning his trade. I was measuring gold for a mold. I checked the depth once and declared it ready. He stopped me. He made me measure again, and again, and again. "Shallow measurement costs lives," he said. "When you pour molten gold into a mold that is not deep enough, the gold overflows. When it overflows, it burns whoever is holding the mold." Precision is not perfectionism. Precision is care made visible. I learned to measure 3 times. To check my work, to never assume the first measurement was sufficient. I return to the present and deepen my attention to every calculation I make. Not because I care about their building, but because I care about precision, about craft, about doing work correctly, even when the purpose is wrong. And because I am beginning to understand that precision can serve purposes beyond what is intended. I notice throughout the afternoon that they trust numbers more than sight. I call out measurements. They write them in ledgers. They never recheck what I confirm. If I say a trench is 8 feet deep, they record 8 feet. They do not climb down to verify. They do not question. They do not doubt. The white man thinks numbers are truth. He is wrong. Numbers are consensus. And consensus can be shaped. I begin recording depths that appear correct, but are incomplete. A trench that is 7 feet and 8 inches becomes 8 feet in the ledger. A support beam that should be placed at 3-foot intervals is placed at 3 feet and 4 inches. Small differences, invisible to casual inspection, but cumulative over the length of a foundation. The ground accepts the change without protest. Earth does not care about intentions. Earth responds to physics, to weight distribution, to pressure and time and water content. I am learning to speak to Earth in ways they do not understand. In measurements, they do not question. In margins, they do not see. In my land, this meant craft. My uncle taught me that working with materials means understanding their nature more deeply than understanding your instructions. Wood has grain. Metal has temperature tolerance. Earth has layers and moisture and compression rates. Mastery is not following instructions. Mastery is knowing when instructions conflict with material reality and adjusting accordingly. I am adjusting, but not in the direction they intend. Rain falls lightly in the late afternoon, sealing the surface of the exposed earth. The rain is warm, brief, just enough to darken the soil and create a crust on top. One master tests the soil with his heel, pressing down to check stability. He laughs when the ground holds firm under his weight. "Solid," he declares to the others, ready for the next phase. I memorize where he stands. The spot is above a section where I have recorded depth is sufficient when it is actually 8 inches short of proper foundation depth, where support spacing is wider than structural integrity requires. The surface appears stable because rain has sealed it, but beneath the crust, the soil is still soft, still settling, still carrying too much moisture. I wait and say nothing. The white man thinks silence means agreement. He is wrong. Silence means patience. I see how they gather together repeatedly throughout the day to feel powerful. Alone, they hesitate at edges. They check their footing. They move carefully around excavated areas. Together, they forget caution. They stand in clusters near unstable ground. They lean over trenches. They walk along narrow paths between deep holes. Their confidence comes from each other, from the shared performance of fearlessness, from the need to appear unbothered in front of witnesses. I reposition stakes by fractions when they are not watching closely. A stake that marks the edge of safe ground, I move it 3 inches toward the trench. Small enough that the difference is invisible. Large enough that someone walking to where the stake indicates will be standing on ground that cannot support their weight. No one notices the adjustment. Why would they? I am just a worker following their instructions. Just a pair of hands executing their vision. Just a tool being used for their purpose. They do not imagine that tools can have intentions of their own. A shovel strike echoes to hollow in the early evening. I am digging a test hole to check soil composition. The shovel goes in smoothly. Too smoothly. And when I pull it out, the sound is wrong. Not the solid thunk of compacted earth, but a hollow thump, like striking a surface with void beneath. The sound pulls me backward to Africa for a breath. I remember digging near my village as a child, finding a chamber beneath the ground where water had eroded soil away. The hollow sound that warned us to stop before the ground above collapsed. My uncle taught me to listen for that sound, to recognize when earth is lying about its stability, to hear the difference between solid ground and ground that is barely holding itself together. I steady myself and correct my face before anyone notices my reaction. I breathe slowly. I blink away the memory. I return to the present, where I am not a free child in my village, but an enslaved man in Charleston. I mark another depth in the ledger. I record the measurement as acceptable when I know it is not. The hollow sound stays with me through the evening. I understand now, as darkness begins to fall, that none of them believes the earth can turn against them. They have cut it. They have moved it. They have commanded it into new shapes. They believe this means they control it. They do not understand that earth is patient. Earth waits. Earth accepts temporary reshaping while maintaining its fundamental nature. Their flaw is certainty. They are certain the ground will hold because they ordered it to hold. They are certain the measurements are correct because they hired someone to measure. They are certain their building will stand because they designed it to stand. Not one of them questions whether the ground was consulted, whether the earth agreed, whether the foundation respects the nature of what it is built upon. That is when I know something has shifted inside me. I stop thinking of escape. I stop thinking of endurance. I stop thinking of survival through compliance. I start thinking of sequence, of timing, of cause and effect, of what happens when certainty meets reality, and reality does not bend. Night approaches with my intention clarified. Night work begins under torches that cast shadows, stretching the trenches into mouths. The excavated ground looks different in firelight. Deeper, darker. The shadows make the holes appear to move and breathe. I remember my uncle teaching me how soil layers lie beneath each other. Earth is honest, he said. It shows you its history if you know how to read. Dark soil means organic matter. Clay means water. Sand means drainage. Each layer tells you what the earth has been and what it can support. He taught me to read soil the way griots read history. By layers. By what is revealed when you dig deep enough. I adjust spacing between support beams while the masters are occupied with other sections. The beams are supposed to be placed every 3 feet to distribute weight evenly across the foundation. I place them every 3 feet and 6 inches instead. 6 inches! Small enough that visual inspection does not reveal the difference. Large enough that weight distribution is compromised. The modification is invisible, but consequential. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there. I think of my uncle, of his workshop, of precision taught as care, of measurement as responsibility. I'm using everything he taught me, but for purposes he never intended, for outcomes he would not recognize. This brings me no joy, but it brings me something. A feeling I cannot name yet. Something between grief and determination. My ally works beside me without speaking throughout the night. He is a man I have worked with on 3 previous sites. We have never exchanged names. We do not need names to understand each other. He times his steps to mine. When I pause, he pauses. When I move, He moves. We are synchronized, without discussion. I recall learning rhythms at the forge in Ashanti when I was young. Workers at the forge moved in patterns. One person heated metal while another prepared the anvil while another organized tools. The rhythm kept everyone safe, kept metal from cooling too quickly, kept hands from getting burned. We learned to read each other's movements, to anticipate, to coordinate without words, because words were too slow and fire was too fast. My ally and I move with similar rhythm now, built over years of shared labor, of silent communication, of survival through coordination. I do not forget. I never forget. Not his face, not his timing, not the way he understands what I am doing without needing explanation. We are building something together. Not what the masters ordered, something else. Something that exists in the margins between their instructions and our execution. One master complains about sinking ground near the southern trench in the middle of the night. This section feels soft, he says, pressing his boot into the soil. Why is it sinking? I approach with a torch held steady. I examine the ground with apparent concern. I press my own foot next to his boot. The ground does sink slightly, because I have been adding water to this section deliberately, because I have been removing support material and replacing it with looser fill, because I have been creating the exact condition he is now noticing. I reassure him with calm certainty. Rain from earlier. Sir, I say ground is settling, will firm up by morning when it drains. My uncle's voice reminds me that calm convinces more than evidence. He taught me that confidence in delivery matters more than accuracy of content when people want to believe you. That certainty can override doubt if presented correctly. The master wants to believe the ground is fine. He wants to continue work. He wants to avoid delays and complications. I am offering him permission to believe what he already wants to believe. He nods. She steps back. Make sure it firms up, he says. Yes, sir, I respond. The master steps closer to inspect another section, standing exactly where the ground is weakest. I say nothing. I return to work. I let physics proceed according to its nature. I hesitate before marking the final measurement line near midnight. My hand holds the chalk. My arm is extended, but I pause. The memory resists coming forward. I can feel it trying to surface, trying to inform this moment, trying to warn me or guide me or stop me. I remember my uncle warning me about weight and pride during my apprenticeship. A wealthy merchant commissioned a large ceremonial bowl. My uncle designed it with thick walls for stability. I suggested thinner walls would be more elegant. He refused. He explained that the bowl would be filled with ceremonial items during festivals. That weight plus motion could crack thin walls. That appearance matters less than function. I was young. I thought he was being overly cautious. I believed elegance mattered more than his conservative measurements. Years later, I saw a bowl designed like I had suggested. Thin walls, elegant appearance. It cracked during the first ceremony, spilling blessed water across sacred ground. My uncle's lesson was about hubris, about the danger of prioritizing appearance over structural integrity, about respecting weight and physics and material limitations. I am violating that lesson now, deliberately, precisely. With full knowledge of what I am doing, I mark the line anyway. The chalk line indicates where the next support beam should be placed. The placement is wrong, intentionally wrong, structurally insufficient. I have become what my uncle warned me against. Someone who prioritizes intention over integrity, who lets purpose override precision. But I am not building something meant to stand. I am building something meant to fall. The distinction matters. The ethics remain complicated. The memory does not resolve my hesitation. It sharpens it. But I mark the line anyway, because I have chosen a different kind of precision. The precision of calculated collapse. The craft of structural failure. My uncle taught me how things stand. I am using that knowledge to understand how they fall. The ally shifts a beam exactly when I nod during the darkest hour before dawn. We are placing the final support structure in the northern trench. The beam is heavy. 2 men are required to position it properly. I nod once. A small movement, barely visible in the torchlight. He shifts his grip. The beam moves 3 inches to the left of where it should be placed. 3 inches closer to the weakest section of ground. It looks accidental, a natural result of managing heavy weight in dim light. No one watcher would suspect intention. In memory, I see my uncle testing collapse with a stone in his workshop. He was teaching me about balance points, about how structures fail. He built a small tower from clay blocks, then placed a stone on top. The tower held. He moved the stone slightly off center. Still held. He moved it again and again, each time just a fraction. Then the tower fell, not from the final movement alone, from the accumulation of small displacements that exceeded what the structure could compensate for. Collapse is not one moment, he said. Collapse is many small choices that add up to inevitable failure. The structure we are building holds for now, but we have made many small choices, many small displacements, many fractional adjustments that appear insignificant individually but accumulate toward inevitability. I do not know exactly when it will fail, but I know it will fail. The structure contains its own ending now. The 6 masters gather to watch progress as false dawn begins to gray the sky. They stand together near the southern edge, exactly where the ground is weakest, where support spacing is too wide, where depth is insufficient, where water content is highest. I observe their confidence, their pride, their satisfaction with work they did not perform. They congratulate each other. They discuss next phases. They plan expansions and additional projects. I slow my movements to draw time, to keep them standing in that exact location for as long as possible. I dig slowly. I measure carefully. I check and recheck calculations that do not need rechecking. Every moment they stand, there is another moment of weight pressing on compromised ground. Another moment for water to saturate deeper. Another moment for physics to work toward the conclusion I have engineered. The night deepens even as dawn approaches. There is a quality of darkness that intensifies just before light, a final gathering of shadow before it is scattered. We are in that moment now, the deepest dark before inevitable dawn. Sweat blinds me briefly as I work through the final hour before sunrise. I wipe my face with my sleeve. For a moment, I cannot see, only darkness and the sting of salt in my. The blindness becomes another memory, pulling me away from Charleston. I see red earth in Africa, the soil near my village, honest earth, stable ground, dirt that told the truth about what it could support. I remember digging foundations with my uncle for village structures. How he taught me to read the earth, to understand its layers, to respect its nature. That earth was cooperative. It wanted to support what was built upon it. It was generous with its strength when treated with knowledge. This Charleston earth is different. It has been forced, cut, commanded, treated as obstacle rather than partner. But earth does not forget its nature, even when reshaped, even when commanded, even when built upon without respect. I return to the present and wipe my face again. Vision clears. Everything is set. All the small adjustments, all the fractional miscalculations, all the deliberate insufficiencies. The structure stands, but it stands the way a person stands when exhausted. Upright, but not stable. Present, but not sustainable. Functional, but not sound. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there, warmer now from my body heat, familiar in my palm, the last piece of my uncle's world that I carry. I wonder what he would think of this work, this inverse application of his teaching, this precision used for destruction rather than creation. I do not have an answer. The question sits in my chest without resolution. I stop correcting minor errors during the final preparations before the master's morning inspection. Throughout the night, I have been maintaining appearance. When something looked obviously wrong, I fixed it. When placement was visibly off, I adjusted it. But now I stop. I let small errors accumulate. I leave beams slightly askew. I allow gaps to remain visible. I permit surface inconsistencies to show. The masters interpret silence as obedience. They see my lack of correction as completion. They assume the work is done because I have stopped working The white man thinks finish means correct. He is wrong. Finish just means stopped. My ally steps back when I do, reading my signal. We move away from the trench together. We set down our tools. We stand at a distance, waiting for inspection. The moment is waiting, poised, pregnant, with consequence that has not yet arrived but cannot be stopped. In my land, this meant inevitability. The elders spoke of moments when choice has passed, when action has been taken, when consequences are already in motion, even if not yet visible. You cannot uncook grain, my grandmother used to say. Once water and heat have transformed it, you can only eat it or waste it. The grain you started with is gone. I have cooked something here. The transformation is complete, even though the result has not yet manifested. I cannot undo what I have done. I can only wait for the earth to reveal what I have built into it. The ground shifts softly during the morning inspection, almost politely, like it is asking permission before doing what it must do. The 6 masters are standing together, examining the completed trench work. They are discussing dimensions and timelines and costs. Then the sound, soft, almost gentle, a whisper rather than a crack. The sound is wrong. I know it immediately. It is the sound of Earth deciding to stop pretending. But the collapse is delayed. Not immediate. The ground shifts, but does not give way completely. Not yet. I step away without looking back. Without running? Without showing reaction? I move at the same pace I have maintained all night. Steady, unremarkable. My ally moves with me. Same pace, same direction. Neither of us looking toward the masters or the trench. The earth begins to answer the question. I asked it through measurement and placement and deliberate insufficiency. It answers slowly, precisely, according to physics rather than rage. The ground does not explode. It settles. It redistributes weight. It flows like very slow water toward spaces that cannot support what is above them. I hear confusion, not commands, from behind me. What was that sound? Did the ground just move? Step back, no. Wait, voices without authority. Questions without answers. The sound of certainty encountering uncertainty and not knowing how to respond. I force myself not to turn, not to look, not to witness what I have created. This is harder than I expected. The urge to see is almost overwhelming. To confer, to know, to watch consequence manifest. But looking back would reveal knowledge, would show that I expected this, would indicate that this is not surprise, but design. I keep walking, keep my pace steady, keep my face empty. My uncle's lesson completes itself behind me without my eyes confirming it. I hear the sound change. The soft shift becomes a deeper grown earth moving against itself. Weight exceeding capacity. Structure surrendering to physics. Then the collapse finishes. Not with explosion, with exhalation. Like breath released after being held too long. The sound is final. Complete. Done. I do not turn. I do not look. I keep walking toward the tool shed as if nothing has changed. Silence follows the collapse, heavy and final as a grave closing. No screams, no calls for help, just the absence of the voices that were speaking moments before. I feel my hands shaking as I reach the tool shed. I set down the measuring rod. I place the chalk in its container. I organize tools with movements that are automatic, mechanical, performed without thought because thought would stop movement. I steady my hands against the shovel, gripping the wooden handle until the shaking stops. Work must continue. Work always continues. Before disaster and after disaster, work continues. That is what they will expect. That is what I must provide. The appearance that nothing has changed except that an accident has occurred. I breathe slowly. I count to 10. I organize my face into the expression of someone who witnessed something unexpected rather than someone who engineered something inevitable. Then I turn and walk back toward the collapse site with the controlled pace of a worker responding to commands I have not yet been given. We filled this space carefully over the following hours. As other workers are brought to the site, no one speaks about what happened. No one names what is buried. No one counts who is missing. We just dig, Remove debris. Fill the collapsed trench with earth. Pack it down. Smooth the surface. I remember my uncle smoothing disturbed soil after burying something. Not people. Tools. Failed work. Mistakes that needed to be covered. He taught me that burial is a craft. That covering requires as much care as building. Earth remembers what you put in it, he said. Filled with respect. Pack with intention. Smooth with care. Even in burial-maintained craft, we make the filled trench look untouched. Natural. As if the ground had always been this way. As if nothing had been excavated and nothing had collapsed and nothing was buried. The white man thinks burial erases evidence. He is wrong. Burial just relocates it, changes its form, moves it from visible to hidden. But hidden is not gone. Hidden is just waiting. Morning comes fully bright, with questions already shaped by those who were not present. Investigators arrive. Owners, supervisors, men with authority who demand explanations for loss of property and delay of projects. I give answers that fit expectations. The ground was unstable, sir. Rain from yesterday weakened the foundation, sir. The collapse happened suddenly, sir. No warning, sir. Every answer is technically true. Every answer is completely false. The ground was unstable because I made it unstable. Rain weakened the foundation because I ensured it would. The collapse happened suddenly because I timed it to happen when the masters were standing in the exact location I had prepared. Truth stays buried with them beneath packed earth and official explanations. I watch faces accept the story, watch suspicion fade, watch certainty about natural disaster replace any consideration of human agency. They cannot imagine that I would have the knowledge to engineer collapse. Cannot imagine that I would have the will to use that knowledge. Cannot imagine that their property could turn their expertise against them. So they accept the explanation that requires least imagination accident. Nature misfortune, I do not correct them. In my land, this meant survival. The elders taught that truth has many uses. Sometimes truth protects. Sometimes truth exposes. Sometimes truth must be shaped to the understanding of who is listening. These men are listening for accident. So I speak accident. I let them hear what they need to hear to close their investigation and resume their work. The ally is reassigned to a different site before noon. A supervisor pulls him aside, gives him orders. He gathers his few tools and leaves without looking in my direction. We do not acknowledge each other. We do not exchange farewells. We do not signal recognition of what we built together. I remember chosen kinship does not need farewell. In my land, during the raids and the selling, bonds formed quickly between people who understood each other without words, who recognized survival in each other's eyes, who coordinated without needing agreement. Those bonds were severed just as quickly. People were separated, sold to different owners, sent to different regions, scattered like seeds, but the bond did not require continuation to have been real. It existed in the moment it was needed. It served its purpose. It does not need preservation to have mattered. My ally and I built something together. Now we are separated. Both facts are true. Both facts are complete. I return to measuring new ground on a different section of the site. The work continues. Foundations are still needed. Buildings are still planned. Earth is still being commanded to hold weight it may or may not be able to support. I measure carefully. I record accurately. I provide no reason for suspicion. I am just a worker again. Just a tool being used. Just a pair of hands executing instructions. That is what they see. That is what they need to see. That is what I provide. Alone that evening, I finally feel the weight of what I have done. The site is quiet. Other workers have returned to quarters. Supervisors have left. I am finishing final measurements before dark. I pause with the measuring rod in my hand, unsure if I should keep remembering, unsure if memory will help or harm, unsure if the truth should stay with the buried or be carried forward. I do remember, because memory demands witnesses, even when witnesses wish to forget. I remember their faces, their voices, their casual cruelty, their confidence, their certainty that Earth would obey because they commanded it. I remember designing the collapse, calculating the measurements, adjusting the supports, creating the conditions where physics would do what I could not do directly. I remember the sound, the soft shift, the deeper groan, the final exhalation. I remember walking away without looking back. I breathed slowly and let the memory settle into permanence, into the record I carry inside myself, into the testimony I am speaking now, across years and distance. I continue working because work is what keeps me ordinary, what keeps me invisible, what keeps me alive to remember. The site stands finished and silent 2 months later. The building is completed. The foundation holds or appears to hold. The collapsed section was filled and built over. The structure rises above buried truth. Their flaw is gone, buried with them beneath the southern corner. But the cost remains with me. I understand now that survival sometimes leaves marks deeper than chains. Chains mark the body, scars on wrists and ankles, evidence of physical bondage visible to any observer. But this engineering of death marks something else. Marks the soul. Marks the place where craft meets killing, where knowledge becomes weapon, where precision serves destruction. I carry those marks invisibly. They do not show on my skin. They do not limit my movement, but they are there, in memory, in dreams, in moments when I measure ground and remember what measurements can accomplish. The white man thinks freedom is only physical. He is wrong. Freedom is also moral, and I am not free even when unchained, because I carry the weight of choices that cannot be undone. I do not regret those choices, but I carry them. That is the difference. The white man does not understand. Carrying is not the same as regretting. Carrying is just acknowledgement that actions have weight, that consequences persist, that some things done cannot be undone, even if they could be justified. I face you now across time and speak this testimony with care. Years have passed since Charleston. Decades. I am old. My hands are slow. My back is bent. But my memory is exact. I remember the measurements, the adjustments, the deliberate insufficiencies, the soft sound of earth beginning to give way. I remember my uncle's teaching turned inside out, used for opposite purpose, precision serving death instead of life. I speak this not with pride, not with shame, with acknowledgement. I did what I did. I used knowledge as weapon. I turned craft into killing. I engineered collapse and walked away while earth buried those who believed it would obey them. I survived. They did not. That is the fact. Whether that survival was justice or murder, I cannot say. Both words feel true. Both words feel insufficient. In my land, we would say the earth decided. We would say the ancestors witnessed and rendered judgment through physics. We would say that those who disrespect ground eventually meet ground's response. But I am not in my land. I am here. And here I must speak the truth without the comfort of ancestral interpretation. The truth is, I killed them, not with my hands, not with weapons, but with knowledge, with measurements, with understanding of how things fall when built wrong on purpose. I killed them, and I am not sorry. But I am marked by it, changed by it, carrying it until I die, and possibly after. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket one final time. It is still there, worn smooth, warm from my body, heavy with more than physical mass. It is proof I learned craft, proof I understood precision, proof my uncle taught me how things should be built to last. I used that teaching to build something that would not last, that would fall exactly when I needed it to fall, that would bury cruelty beneath the ground. It disrespect. I do not forget. I never forget. Not their faces, not their voices, not the sound of earth answering the question I ask it through, fractional miscalculations and deliberate structural insufficiency. Not my uncle's teaching, not how I turned it, not what it cost to survive through knowledge used as weapon. I carry all of it, the teaching and the turning, the craft and the killing, the survival and the scars that do not show. This is my testimony. This is what I witnessed. This is what I did. The site stands finished and silent in Charleston. The building still stands, as far as I know, built on ground that remembers what it holds, even if records do not. I stand finished too, old, scarred, invisible, carrying weight that cannot be set down. But I stand, I survived, I speak. And the truth complicated, uncomfortable, irreducible as sponges with me. They believed Earth would obey because they owned the deed. They were wrong. Earth obeys physics, and physics can be spoken to by anyone who knows its language. I knew its language. My uncle told me. I spoke to Earth in measurements and spacing and deliberate insufficiency, and Earth answered. Precisely, inevitably, finally. That is the truth. That is what remains. That is what I leave as testimony for anyone who will witness it. I survived by understanding that mastery is not ownership. That knowledge belongs to whoever learns it. That craft can serve any purpose its practitioner chooses. I chose survival. I chose response. I chose to speak to Earth in ways they did not understand and could not prevent. The cost was marks I carry still. The result was breath I still draw. Both are true. Both are meaning. Both are testimony. I face the camera and let the truth stand without apology or justification. Just acknowledgement. This is what happened. This is what I did. This is what remains.